Hi, good afternoon everyone. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes just for some more people to join and then we'll get started. Just while we've got a couple of minutes, if you want to get yourselves comfy, you've got time to go and run and get a drink. Make sure that you're sat comfortably. Have some movement breaks during the hour if you need to. That's absolutely fine as well. And look forward to getting started in just about a minute now. There we go, we'll make a start. So today we're going to have a look at back to school success for children with sensory differences. So we're going to have a look at some practical strategies, hopefully for some calmer mornings, smoother school days and hopefully happier children. So welcome. I'm going to have a little bit of help today with my slides. We've had a bit of a technical difficulty, so when I say next, someone in the background is just going to change to the next slide for me. So next. Thank you. So welcome. My name is Louise Newton. I work at OT for Me, which is based in Bishopthorpe in York. So I'm an occupational therapist. I've been working with children now for around about 12 years. And before that, I've got a long history of working as an occupational therapist and an OT assistant in many different environments, mainly mental health, so inpatient and community work as well. Started working with children about 12 years ago because I was really interested in sensory integration, and I left the NHS at that point to pursue a bit more training, and I wanted to really work with children in a therapeutic way as well. So that's what we did. So about 5 years ago, my business partner and I, Lizzie, set up OT for Me, and we have 3 clinic spaces now across York, and we support many hundreds of children. So if I've met you before, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and if not, then really nice to meet you. So I just wanted to say as well that the information today is just guidance, and it shouldn't really replace a thorough sensory integration assessment if you need one, but yeah, some general strategies today that hopefully will be helpful for you. So I just wanted to say as well that back to school can be really exciting for some people, and maybe some of you have experienced that, but also it can be really overwhelming for some children, especially those with sensory differences. So if you're having a really hard time at the moment, you're not alone. Many of our families are experiencing similar things, so please do get in touch if we can help you in any way. And also I wanted to give some practical, easy to use strategies. Some of these things are very cost effective and cheap and free. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay, next. So I wanted to have a little look at what are sensory differences. So sensory differences are just variations in how people perceive, process and respond to sensory input. We're all very different, and there's no right or wrong with sensory integration. So just because somebody experiences something different to us doesn't mean that that's wrong. It's just a difference, and we need to embrace that. And we do typically talk about 8 sensory systems, so you might be well aware of the 5, which are sight, hearing, smell, taste and touch. Those are the ones that we tend to learn about in school. But we also look at vestibular system, and that's very much based on balance. So it helps us stay upright and it helps us to move smoothly. We also think about proprioception, and that's very much related to body awareness. So knowing where our body is in space. So if we think about all the things that we need to do to know where our body is in space, if we're walking down a crowded corridor, we need to be able to move out of the way and navigate down that corridor without bumping into people. We need to be able to do tasks that require us not being able to see, but understanding what our body is doing. So when we're sitting at a table, we know what our legs are doing under the table. We can wipe our bottoms, we can put our hair into a bobble, we can fasten bras, we can do that kind of thing without really being able to see, but we're just relying on our body awareness and our sense of touch. We also think about interoception, and we're going to have a bit of a deeper look at that shortly. But that's noticing things like hunger, thirst, pain, emotions, our heartbeat. It's all those internal sensory systems. So some people are more sensitive to certain inputs. So for some people, bright lights can feel really overwhelming, or clothing tags can feel painful. That's a really common one. And some people are less sensitive, so they seek out stronger inputs. So maybe they crave loud music, they like really tight hugs, or they enjoy lots of movement. This is often discussed in the context of autism, anxiety, or just personal differences, but everyone has a unique sensory profile. Next. So I just wanted to have a think about one of the sensory systems that I've mentioned, which is smell. This is a really different one from the rest of the sensory systems. So as you can see on this diagram there at the top, we have visual, auditory, which is our hearing, touch and taste. And all of that sensory input goes into our body through receptors, and it goes up to the brain, specifically to the thalamus. And the thalamus is like a train station. It organises where all those trains, all that sensory input is going to go. So it might send one train to London, it might send one train to Edinburgh, if we think about the train analogy. So if we think about it in sensory terms though, the visual input would go to the thalamus. It then sorts out that information and it thinks, right, is that information important? Possibly. So if we're at a main road, we're looking for traffic, there's a car coming. So the information then gets organised and sorted out in the thalamus. That information goes down the I struggle to say this word, the lobe, and then that information goes to the limbic system. And the limbic system is where our memories are formed and where our emotional centres are. So if we step out into the road and we haven't seen a car very well, our emotional state will become very heightened, and our memory might help us in future to look more carefully, because we've learnt from experience that if you don't look, you might step out in front of a car. So it very much is sorted out in the thalamus, and that can take, it's a very quick process, but it takes a little bit longer. Whereas smell is very, very different. It doesn't go to the thalamus for sorting out immediately. It goes straight to the limbic system. So it tags into our memory and our emotional state. And we think this is like a safety device. So if you smell smoke, for example, when you're in your house, you don't want to be sitting there thinking about that. You just need to be able to get out. So it's a very reactive and quick process. So this might help us as well understand why we tag smells to memories. So if I do more training, which you might be part of at some point, I like us to have a think about a memory that's really important to us and see what smell that evokes. So you might think about the smell of baking, and you might attribute that to grandma. She always made scones and she always baked, and you went into a house and it always smelled lovely, and that attaches really happy memories. But think about other smells. If you go into a school, do you know that smell? You sometimes think, don't you, oh gosh, that takes me right back to my school days. I can smell what school smelt like. You might not remember what school was like. You might not remember other sensory experiences. What did it feel like on your skin to be in school? What kind of noises did you hear? You might not remember as well as smell, but it triggers it very quickly. So if we think about that from people that might have sensory differences, the minute they go into a school, they're attributing some of those smells to memory. And if they've had a traumatic time in school, then obviously it's going to be triggering some of those emotional memories, and it creates a very, very strong response. If we think about things like perfumes or aftershaves, some smells can be really nice. If you've had a teenage crush and they used to wear a special kind of perfume or aftershave, you smell that smell and you go, oh, I love that smell. But think about if someone has aftershave on, a teacher maybe, and that's linked to a bad smell. So maybe, you know, it might be a child that's had a history of domestic abuse, and that teacher smells like mum or dad. Imagine, you know, the emotions that might evoke, and this might be the reason sometimes that children have a meltdown or a traumatic experience in school. If we think again as well about the smells in the toilets, some people that have sensory differences are really quite sensitive to smells, and that overpowering smell of the toilet or the dining room in school can be really quite overwhelming, and that might then attach to a memory, which is why sometimes getting children back into school when they've had periods of absence can feel really tricky. So I hope that's helpful, but we can also use it to our advantage. So if we know that your child likes a certain smell, so maybe it is the smell of you have a special perfume or a deodorant or something that you use all the time, we can maybe put that on a handkerchief and pop it in the child's pocket, and if they become a little bit overwhelmed, maybe they can just discreetly take out that handkerchief and just have a smell, and hopefully it can then start reducing some of those emotional responses. So yeah, let's not underestimate the power of smell when we're thinking about our sensory profiles. Next. I wanted to have a little think about sleep as well. So up to 80% of autistic children experience sleep problems, and this can be a few different things. So it could be a difficulty getting to sleep, it could be waking up in the night, or it could be that they're sleeping for very short periods. And there was a study where these sleep difficulties were consistently associated with sensory hyperreactivity. So that means that somebody is overreacting to that kind of input. So that might be that they are responding to noises that are around them. Their brain is not switching off noises that are in the house when they're trying to go to sleep. It might be the feeling of the bed sheets or the pyjamas that they're wearing on the tactile system. And some people are hyporeactive, which means that they're not always getting enough sensory input to be able to regulate. So these are children and adults that are sensory seeking. So maybe sleep is disturbed because they are bouncing up and down on the bed, or they are seeking more movement and they're getting in and out of bed for that. Or maybe that they are hyporeactive to touch, so they're sneaking into your bed for a tight squeeze or a hug. So yeah, so that, I just thought that was an interesting study. You can find that article there, I've put the reference on, and just have a read. It was very interesting. Next. So if we don't get a good night's sleep, school is going to be a bit of a nightmare, and we know that, don't we? Work can be a bit of a nightmare for us if we've not had enough sleep. So I just wanted to give us a few strategies, and I'm sure you've tried some of these already, but it's just good as a reminder as well. So adequate sleep is really crucial for regulation. So we do suggest limiting screen time before bed, and we know this can be tricky because kids like screen time, and actually there's some children that use screen time as a method of relaxation. So like I said, one size doesn't fit all. You just use your kind of judgment on what's best. But yeah, there has been studies found that the blue light from the screens can really impact sleep, and also the fast movement of the things that children are watching online. So if you think back to, especially when I was younger, cartoons were quite slow paced, and the screen didn't change every few seconds, whereas now they've found that some of the programs that children watching, the screen changes every 6 seconds, and that's just then alerting the brain. It's like more information, more information, more information, and it can be quite alerting. So we just say, you know, an hour or two before bed, try not to have an excessive amount of screen time if sleep is a problem. So try and have a consistent bedtime routine as well. This can be really tricky, but it really does pay off in the long run. It produces predictability, and also just gets our bodies and sensory systems used to something predictable and reliable. So baths can be really helpful. For children that are quite tactile sensitive, we find that showers can be actually quite an alerting or over-alerting experience, because the water is giving us that kind of light touch, and that can be quite alerting to the skin. Whereas a bath, when you submerge under the water, it's giving us deep pressure and lots more proprioceptive feedback to our muscles and joints, but predominantly deep pressure, and that's more regulating. So maybe try a bath instead of a shower. You can try weighted items or snuggly blankets as well. Deep pressure is regulating, so weighted items can be really useful. We do have a guidance sheet around that, so please do email in and we can send you that. The main things that we suggest are that the child doesn't sleep overnight with the weighted blanket on in case they get too hot, and also that the child must be able to push that off themselves if they get too hot. There was a child a few years ago now that actually passed away under a weighted blanket. They did have significant learning difficulties and physical restrictions, which meant that they couldn't push the blanket off and it suffocated them. So please do be careful. Obviously, you know, that's worst case scenario and that's very, very rare. So yes, but they are good to use in the run up to bedtime. As well, try, I've just got something around calm and dim lighting. Again, bright lights can be quite over-alerting, so try calm bedtime lights can be really helpful. Gentle stretches and breathing before sleep can be really useful, so try some deep breathing techniques or maybe a bit of yoga before sleep as well. That can be really, really helpful. Think back to the smells as well. We've talked about how smell can be really effective, so maybe something that emits smells over the night, as long as your child is not over responsive to smells and actually quite enjoys smells and finds them comforting. You can do lots of vigorous movement before bed. Some people think that, you know, after tea the whole night has to be calming, but actually a bit of rough and tumble and some really effective movement can help. Try and do that an hour or two again before bedtime and then start the wind down into something calming. A bedtime story as well can be really, really effective. One, it helps them with the reading, which is great for school, but also it's that connection, it's that attachment to the caregiver, and also you can give them a tight hug as well while you're reading that story. Again, under your weighted blanket, it's all these regulation tips. You can also get bedding that's lycra and it gives a really tight squeeze while they're asleep. You can get that on Amazon. Again, read the manufacturer's kind of guarantees and instructions on safe use when using these things. But yeah, we do know that sleep can be difficult, and we do offer sleep support as well. So if you're having difficulties with sleep, please do get in touch. Next. So the morning routine fills me with dread. I remember it very well. My children are now 20 and 17 and still I remember it like it was yesterday. It can be very, very tricky. So give yourself a break. You know, we always can feel bad when we've kind of lost it or things have been stressful. We are all human, these things happen, and things are difficult. So give yourself a break is my first advice. But let's have a think about how we can make mornings a little bit easier. So try and keep mornings as stress-free as possible. So this might mean doing all the tricky tasks the night before. So thinking about, you know, personal cares, do it the night before. If you're going to wash hair, make sure all the knots are out the night before, so that in the morning you're not kind of faffing about with doing unnecessary things. Make sure all the uniforms out, laid out, make sure the packed lunch is ready. Do all these things the night before, save yourself lots of stress. As well, yes, please do put your questions in the chat. You could try using visual timetables and checklists. So this can be, I'm going to show you an example on the next page, but this can be where you have a list of things that they need to do in a morning and they can tick them off, or they might have a picture of that thing that they need to do in a morning and they can take it off one piece of paper and put it onto the other when it's done. Children like achieving things and they quite like things like, some children do, like sticker charts and rewards, unless somebody's got pathological demand avoidance profile. So PDA kiddies do tend to not react very well to things that are more demand, so trying to get rewards can be really tricky for those children. But actually for many children they can be really helpful. So using checklists that they can check off, it gives them that independence, but also it's telling them, rather than you needing to be saying, have you got your socks, have you got your shoes, have you got your tie, have you got your packed lunch, and you just feel like you're on repeat saying these things over again, that they can just go and check their timetable and tick it off when they've done it. And yes, building independence with small tasks. So as young as, you know, 4 or 5, then children can be doing some things themselves. Can they help you make their packed lunch? They're more likely to eat it if they've put the foods in that they want, and if they've had some kind of ownership over what's gone in that packed lunch. So yeah, having a think about how to build up their independence. Can they help with, if they struggle to put socks on, can they put one sock on and you put the other sock on? Or can they start the process of putting a sock on and you then help them finish putting that sock on? Just building that independence with these small tasks can be really, really helpful. So yeah, just encouraging independence and predictability. Children feel calmer when they know what's next. Next. This is just an example of something that you can have. So those little icons will have Velcro on the back, and you can have another sheet that they then put tasks on once they've done them. So they can just peel it off when they've done it and put it on the other sheet of paper, and that list is getting smaller, which is a good sense of achievement. Okay, next. On the way to school as well, mindfulness can be really, really effective. So just having a think about why. So we talked a little bit a moment ago about interoception, which is our internal body systems, and that is concerned with everything that goes on inside of our body. So from really functional things like needing the toilet, am I feeling hungry, am I cold, down to those kind of emotions, it's all that internal regulation. So it's the sense that helps us notice signals from inside our body, like if your heart's racing or butterflies in the stomach, that kind of thing. And it gives us important clues about how we're feeling. The challenge is that many children and adults don't automatically tune into these signals, and that's where mindfulness becomes really, really important. So mindfulness activities like pausing to notice our breath, or scanning the body for sensations, like just stopping in the moment and thinking, do I need the toilet? How does my tummy feel? Am I hungry? Am I cold? Can be really, really helpful. Like paying attention to the stomach before eating, like we've just said. So we're trying to help children to just slow down and become present in their present, rather than thinking ahead, school, school, school. Being present in the moment, it can be really grounding and really helpful for children. And then we can start linking that with emotions. So if your child notices that their heart is beating fast, that leads into a discussion around, okay, at what times does my heart beat fast? It might be exercise, absolutely, but it might be when I'm feeling worried, and that can then lead into an open discussion around, are you feeling worried this morning? And that can help with the solution, hopefully. It also builds the ability to link signals to like internal sensory systems that are really tricky to perceive. So like if my tummy is feeling tight, is that because I'm nervous, or am I hungry, or do I need the toilet? It's really quite complex what goes on the inside of us, and we very much take it for granted. So practice in these areas is always really, really important. So yeah, mindfulness is a great tool for making interoceptive signals louder and clearer. So let's have a think about that on the way to school. How can we do that on the way to school? So just stop and listen. So what sounds can we hear this morning? Can we hear a dog barking? Can we hear the road noises? Can we hear an ambulance? Obviously, if your child is really over responsive to sounds, then we know that already. So maybe ear defenders would be best, and you might not want to be noticing sounds on the way to school. But if that's not too much of a difficulty, that can be a really nice thing to just stop and say, can we hear the birds in the trees? That's a nice bird. I wonder what that bird is. Also, maybe doing a colour hunt. So how many things can you find on the way that are green? How many things can we find that are blue? It just helps them build awareness of the environment around them and supports that kind of calm focus. You could talk about the weather. How does it feel? So a perfect example for today, it's really windy out there, and I've worked in lots of schools, and before I started learning more about sensory integration, I used to notice that the children came in off the playground on a windy day and they'd all just be absolutely wild, and you're thinking, what has happened out there on the playground? Why are all these children full of beans when they come back in to the classroom? But if you think about why, when the wind is blowing, it's blowing across your skin really unpredictably. So it's changing that sensory feeling all the time from light pressure to deep pressure, and it's quite unpredictable and quite sudden. And the same with our hearing, it kind of whips in your ears around, doesn't it, and creates more sound. The trees are rustling more, and the children are screaming more because they're all becoming a little bit more alert as well. So things can really change when it's windy. It just seems to over alert children. So just thinking about the weather on the way to school, how does it feel? Is it hot? Do you need your coat on? Do you want me to take your coat off? Is it cold? Do you need your cardigan on? You know, those kind of prompts around how the body's feeling. You could use a scooter or a bike on the way to school, but pull that back down to mindfulness and interoception. How are your legs feeling? Oh, I bet your legs are really tired after all that pedaling, and just making them focus into the legs. Or you could try breathing as you step. So match your breath to your walking. So as you're doing 3 steps, breathe in, and on the 4th step, breathe out. That can really support regulation and makes that breath awareness good as well, and puts that breath easier into natural rhythm. Okay, next. So just thinking about supporting regulation before and during school. So we talked a little bit about proprioception, and I was telling you that that was around body awareness. It's also around how much pressure we use as well. So if we think about every time we lift a cup off the table, we know how much pressure to use so that we don't throw the contents of that cup over our shoulder, but we lift it hard enough so that we can get it off the actual desk. So it's around force as well, and knowing how much force to use. So proprioceptive input is when we are using our muscles and joints, and it's really typically regulating for children, which is why everyone goes on about exercise and movement. It's really, really important for children. So yeah, proprioceptive input can be found in all those kind of activities. And if we think about some activities, we use more active proprioception, so when those muscles and joints are moving. So walking and running are a more active form of proprioception than, say, like a joint compression, which is still good, but active proprioception is really, really good. And we can think about the different types of proprioceptive input as well. So if we're using something like a heavy rucksack, that's really grounding. It's giving us deep pressure as well, but can be really, really grounding. So when your child comes out of school, if they're dysregulated and they throw their rucksack at you, which is what my son used to do, carry my bag, just give it them back and see if they'll carry it home, because that heavy kind of weighted will just help ground and regulate. Just thinking about, could you walk or bike to school for extra movement instead of always taking the car? That can be really, really effective, or a scooter, which is what we've talked about. But also thinking about that deep pressure touch and kind of pairing that with proprioceptive input. If your child is having trouble with uniform especially, maybe some tight underlayers can be really, really helpful. So like cycling shorts or compression tops. Again, you don't need to spend a lot of money on these things. Anytime you tag sensory on the start of something, it's like weddings, isn't it? It makes it all the more expensive. So just have a look what you can find in sports shops and on Amazon and places like that. Can be really, really effective as well. Next. So having a think around our kind of oral input as well. So that can be really, really useful in supporting regulation. So as we know, foods can be a really tricky topic for some of our children. So I would definitely be talking to the teachers and making sure that the people that serve the dinners are aware if your child has sensory differences, and of course any allergies and things like that. But yeah, we certainly don't want children to be getting stressed out at lunch times. It can already be a stressful environment sitting in a dining hall with all the smells and all the noise and all the children and all the accidental touch as people are walking past you and having to queue and all the expectations. So we don't want food to be another barrier. And we don't want to turn children off food that they will already eat. So this isn't on my slide actually, but one thing we do suggest is that you don't hide food in other food if your child only eats a limited amount of food. So not like I used to do. If I was making a bolognese, you know, I would grind carrots and blend up all kinds of vegetables in his bolognese to make him eat more vegetables. But I mean, kids are not daft, are they? They know that that bolognese is not the same as you made it last time, and then if they won't eat it again, you've lost the battle. So try not to hide foods in other foods, but that's really important as well, that if they're eating school dinners, that they know exactly what's in that food, and having a chat around, can you make sure that food is the same every time? And if not, packed lunches are going to be your way forward. But we can use crunchy or chewy snacks for regulation. So anything that's using our jaw muscles here, this big muscle here, that's giving more proprioception because it's a big muscle. We talk about muscles and joints, it's a big muscle. So chewy snacks can be really, really helpful. You might need that when you pick them up from school, if you know that they get home and have a meltdown. give them a chewy snack on the way home. Crunchy snacks can be really quite alerting. So if they're looking a bit tired when they come out of school, or you think that they might be tired in the morning break time, give them something crunchy. So it could be like a celery or carrot stick, something like that. When we're chewing as well, it can be really rhythmical and repetitive, which can be really, really helpful as well for calming down. Just have a see. So yeah, also having some snacks in the classroom. I know this is going to be a contentious issue, but if your child has got some identified sensory differences or they have a diagnosis, then I think that we can put in some reasonable adjustments and maybe having a snack during the class times as well. It can be a bit of a more helpful strategy than things like chewing clothing or mouthing objects. You know, if that's helpful. Next. So just some calming tools that you can actually take into school. Again, you might need this on the child's EHCP or on their My Support Plan, or hopefully that you've got a teacher that is understanding of these things, to allow them to have a fiddle toy or a stim toy. I do think that schools are getting better at allowing those, but again, having their sensory profile done or an assessment with OT for me, if we can put those things in your recommendations, sometimes that just helps. But always explain the why that child needs it as well, and that you know, we understand that they can be distracted to other children, so we won't get something that's going to be flashing or making noise, but you know, it is a reasonable adjustment. I think it's something that you should be allowed. Ear defenders can be great, or loops, things like that. Again, just let the teacher know that these are an essential part, as essential as having a chair and a desk. We need our ear defenders out, and we need to be able to see them as well. The number of schools I go in, and especially some like the specialist schools, and I'll say, oh, where are the ear defenders? And they'll say, oh, in their bag. I'm like, oh, right, well, they're no good there, are they? We can't see them, and we forget to use things if they're not right in front of us. So having them out on the desk can be really important. And we can have adapted uniform as well. So we did a little Facebook post on that. Have a scroll back through our Facebook, see if you can find that. There's plenty of companies that do adapted uniforms now. But again, things like moving labels can be helpful. Soft layers, always washing them in the same fabric stuff can be really, really helpful. And again, trying to talk to school around those reasonable adjustments. And again, that is things that we write into children's EHCPs if they need those adjustments. Things like trainers instead of shoes if they've got sensitivities around clothing. Okay, next. So communication with school can be really, really essential. Sometimes it's really good to communicate what has happened with your child the night before or the morning before, because they might have been okay when you drop them off at the school gate, but then some point throughout the day, you know, this child is then not okay, and the teacher would really benefit from knowing why. So you might want to have like a diary that you send backwards and forwards with school. They write in just a paragraph about how the child's been at school, they send it home in their school bag. You then write in the morning about what kind of morning or night they've had, and you send it back to school. It can be really, really effective. So talk about things like sleep. How was the sleep the night before? That might explain why they're tired today, and they might just need a bit of a rest. If there's been any big changes at home, so did they have something exciting happening? Did grandma come round? Did a friend come round? Did something upsetting happen? Did they play out and they got bullied? Or is there something going on at home, like you know, things happen, don't they, between relationships? Is there something upsetting going on for that child? Is there anything coming up that's really exciting? Because Christmas can be a big trigger for some children. They get too excited, and it's something that's coming up that they're getting more and more excited about, or something that they're not looking forward to, like a dentist appointment's coming up. So yeah, it's really helpful to keep passing that communication backwards and forwards. Even more critical if the child lives in more than one home. So often parents do things differently in different homes, which is absolutely fine. Try and keep as much the same as you can if your child has sensory differences or struggles with that transition. But yeah, letting teachers know which parent that child's been with and how things were while they were staying there. Okay, next. So after school decompression. We get so many families that say to us, oh, school say they've been absolutely fine, and then they come home and we have an absolute explosion of emotion or meltdown or difficulty coping. And just to reassure you that that is exactly what we see. That is really, really typical. It's not because school are doing anything better than what you're doing at home. This is not your fault. It's not parenting often. This is because they've held it together all day in school. The sensory cup has got fuller and fuller and fuller and fuller. They get home to their safe space and they just let it all out. And to be fair, that's exactly what I do. You know, I mean, maybe ask my staff this on a good day, but I am really, really nice to all the staff at work and all my families because that's what's expected of me. I am, you know, polite, I'm helpful where I can be. And then you get home, don't you, and the uniform comes off, you get in your pajamas. I might shout at the family because I live with 3 men and the bathroom's a mess. And they certainly don't see my good side at times. So that is really, really normal, and that is what, you know, we then expect our kids to have the perfect behaviour in school and then have the perfect behaviour when they come home, and it's just not going to happen always, is it? So, but we can help them decompress after school. So children need to unwind, and that can seem really common sense, but we are often very good at giving our children lots of activities to do after school. So they often go to breakfast club or after school club, and then they're going to tennis, or they're going to brownies, or they're going to swimming, or they're doing all these activities in an evening. And yes, we say movement is very important and activities are important, and social mixing with other children is really important, but also children need time to unwind. So don't do something every evening, and let them just unwind as soon as they get in from school. So I wouldn't be asking them lots of questions. My son used to come home from school and we always seemed to have an argument until I realised how hangry he was. So I would not really speak to him, and then I'd feed him, and then after tea he was a delight again, which is again seems really common sense, but just trying to not ask him or put demands on him when he came in from school became something that I learned. So yeah, sensory comfort. So let them do something that they really enjoy when they come home. So this might be sitting under their weighted blanket, listening to some music, having a bath, whatever it is that helps them to kind of decompress and come down. Connection time can be really effective. So rather than asking them questions like, what did you do at school today? Which they always say nothing, don't they? They don't learn anything in school. And you might say, what did you have for lunch? And oh, I don't know, I can't remember. Maybe they genuinely don't, but often I think it's just a way of fobbing you off because they just can't be bothered, or they're too full in their cup to be talking about that. So maybe asking different questions like, oh, out of everything you ate at lunchtime, what was your favourite thing in your lunchbox today? So that's a bit of a different question. Or with everyone you played with today, what was your favourite game? Or who was your favourite person that you played with today? Maybe asking the questions in a slightly different way. And I, again, using my son as an example, I always asked him questions when we were driving somewhere in the car, because you're not making eye contact with them and the demands are a little bit less, and they've relaxed and they're in their kind of, they're in a good mood. He would tell me so much more about what was going on in his life than if I just sat down over the dinner table and started asking him questions. So those kind of questions, doing a shared activity, so colouring together or doing crafts or bath time, could just help with them starting to open up about how their day has actually been. So keep it low demand and quiet when you get in from school as well. Creative activities can be really helpful as well. Things like clay and Play-Doh, you're getting that proprioceptive and deep pressure touch with your hands. It's a shared activity, it's fun, it can just really help with decompress. I would not suggest that children do the homework as soon as they come in from school, even though it gets it out of the way, because they do need time to compress. I could not walk in from work and then start writing a report. I would need to decompress, have something to eat, get in my pyjamas, again, there's the pyjamas, and then I can write a report. So yeah, try not to put those demands on straight away. We said in the bedtime routine, movement and heavy work can be really effective before that calm down period before bed. So can you, do den building? Can you build a den? Can you do an obstacle course around your house? Can you play hide and seek? Can you do some more yoga or like a Wii Fit or something if they want to do gaming? Heavy work, like helping you unpack the shopping, helping you undo the dishwasher, all those lovely things that children love doing. Just that kind of heavy work, helping you get things out the washer or dryer because it's heavy, and it just helping you with those jobs can be really, really effective. And outdoor play, we can't kind of push this enough really. Outdoor play can be really, really important. Not for all children, like I said, not one size fits all, but often outdoor play. So maybe stop at the park on the way home from school, or just let them have a run around the garden for 5 minutes, or even on your walk home from school, can they do some little activities like, I used to do this a lot when I was a child, like doing hopscotch. You can't stand on the cracks between the flags, you have to kind of jump between the flags on your way home, or can they walk down the line, or can they walk backwards for a short time, can they do follow my leader, so they walk down the pavement in a certain way and you have to copy them. Just that movement, making it a little bit more interesting after school, hopefully allows that decompression in an evening. Okay, next. If there's any teachers with us today, they're probably all teaching, but I thought I'd just do a little bit on classroom strategies. You could always pass this on to your teacher as well if they're not with us today. So these are just things that might help in the classroom for all children, I would say, but definitely for children with sensory differences. So reducing visual distractions. This can be really tricky because especially in primary school, they love the classrooms to be bright and engaging and with teaching information on the walls and lovely displays, and I so get the value in that. It looks beautiful, and Ofsted love that kind of thing, and the children do sometimes look at the walls and learn things off the wall, but for some children it can be too much. It's really distracting, all that visual information on the wall, and so just having a think about that. If your child does sit on their own somewhere because of sensory differences, then the wall that they look at, could you have nothing on that wall? That would just be really, really helpful as well for children. We've talked already, but allowing sensory tools. There's fidget toys, there's ear defenders, there's wobble cushions. There's a lovely chair called a Zuma chair, Z-U-M-A, Zuma chair. They create movement in the classroom because they're a chair that's like on rockers. They're really, really good. So just allowing those sensory tools in, and all the children do want to have a go on the chair as well, but we're inclusive, so get the whole classroom chairs. That's what I say. These strategies are good for all children. Providing movement breaks. Can't say this enough. Lots of schools now are cutting out the afternoon play times, and I don't think that's a great idea. But I know they've got a lot of education to squeeze in, but please do some movement breaks during your classroom sessions. Do it with all the children. So can they stand up and can they give you 5-star jumps, and can they high five the person next to them, and can you just do those little bits of movement in the lessons? All children, they are so important. Just keeps that alertness going. Same with us. If we're in a meeting, you'll find yourself start fidgeting to try and keep yourself awake, and that's what children are doing. They're fidgeting to try and keep their brains awake, so let them have the movement. And flexible seating, yeah, I've just talked about the Zuma chairs can be great, but do children have to sit at the desk, especially if they've got some additional needs? Can they sit on a cushion? Can they sit under the table? Can they sit on a gym ball, for example, that's got some support to keep it steady? So just thinking about seating, it doesn't always have to be table and chair. Okay, next. I want to just quickly talk about EHCPs. So I'm not going to go into detail too much about this because we will be doing other webinars around that, and there's plenty of help with lots of other organisations. I recommend Sunshine Support. They're very, very good online. They've got loads of resources that you can access around EHCPs. They are a legal document, so if we can get things in your child's EHCP, the school have to provide it. So this is where we can be really helpful to you. We can write EHCP reports, and we go into school and see how they're doing at school, and we see them in clinic for lots of detailed assessments, and we write what that child's needs are and the provision to meet that need. It's really, really important. It provides clarity and consistency as well, and it gives the child access to resources they need. It can be really helpful for joined up support. And it has a focus on outcomes as well. So what are we expecting, or what do we need to see from this child's education? And it also gives parent and child's voice in there, which is really, really important. So if you do need an EHCP, you haven't got one, get in touch. Or if your EHCP isn't fit for purpose, again, get in touch. If you have an EOTAS, which is that's for educated other than at school, please let us know. We can help with that as well. So yeah, just get in touch if you have any more questions around that. Okay, next. So I just wanted to talk just for 2 minutes around the kind of work that we do at OT for Me. So we provide lots of different types of assessments. We can send you out a booklet that explains what the bronze, silver, gold and platinum are. They're just different tiered levels of assessments. One is a sensory assessment, one is a full OT assessment, occupational therapy assessment, where we're looking at that child's functioning across lots of different areas. So things like their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, their independent skills, emotional regulation, everything that child needs to do or wants to do throughout their daily life. Then we look into those areas and we assess those areas and make recommendations around how we can make that quality of life better. We do EHCP reports, which I've said. We support tribunal work. We work on things like handwriting. We do back to school assessments. We do also see teenagers and adults as well. So yeah, we don't turn anybody away. If we can help, we certainly will, or we'll signpost on to something else if we can't. We do lots of interventions, so we do occupational therapy intervention where we're working on some of those functional areas again. So it might be that the child has a desire to get better at handwriting, so we will support handwriting sessions. It might be that they are overcoming some kind of operation or disability or injury, and we can help with that. We do AIRS sensory integration therapy, which is a specialist therapy for children with sensory differences. It's very well evidenced now. There's a big evidence base. We have just put out a position statement on AIRS sensory integration therapy. Please do read that, it's very important. We have an occupational therapist that is a specialist in trauma and attachment, and she also supports children with Adoption Support Fund as well, so please do get in touch. Our OT is called Marion. She would love to speak to you and talk about your needs there. Excuse me, just have a drink. We can provide regulation sessions, so children that might need to come and decompress after school or in the holidays, we do that as well. We hire our room, which is a beautiful sensory room. We have indoor swings, ball pits, soft play, climbing wall. You can hire that as well during the holidays. And we do run some holiday groups. If you missed any of those, have a look on our social medias. We had some brilliant groups and some brilliant feedback as well. They went really, really well. So please do get in touch today. The links are going to come up how you can do that. We'd love to talk to you. Our consultation calls are all free. You can ring us, no obligation. We'll give you some advice over the phone and we can talk to you about next steps. Okay, next. So key takeaways from today, we're going to have questions and answers in a minute if anyone's got any, but yes, let's create routines that help focus on predictability and routine. That would be really, really helpful for a lot of our children. That communication between home and school really can build that consistency. And that we have some sensory strategies now to support regulation. If you need any more, please do get in touch. And small changes really do make big differences. I always like to say that small hinges open wide doors. So don't discount anything you're doing or anything that you can now put into place to try and help your child. Maybe pick one thing at a time and do it well rather than trying to change, 10 things all at once. But yeah, just to give you our support, we're behind you. And if you need anything from us, please do get in touch. So I will just see if anybody has got any questions now in the chat. Let me just have a look. Here we go. Right, hopefully I'll get some. So I've got a question, my child. Oh gosh, sorry, it just jumped down. There's lots of questions. My child seems to fluctuate between sensory seeking and avoiding. Is this typical? Yes, it absolutely can be. So if you think about us as well, I like to use this example. So I get in my car on the way home from work, especially on a Friday, and I crank the radio up on my tunes and I'm singing away and the music's really, really loud. Get out my car and I might not use it again for a couple of days. Get in my car on Monday morning, turn on the engine and the music blares out and I go, oh my gosh, I can't cope with that, that's awful. And I turn it off, silent, because I need silence. So that's very much me seeking auditory input and then avoiding sensory input, and that can fluctuate depending on our mood, on how full our sensory cup is, on things that have happened over the weekend. Yeah, so it can really, really change, and it doesn't have to just be like over a weekend. It can fluctuate hour by hour depending on how well regulated we are. So we tend to be less tolerant of sensory input when we're overwhelmed or when we're anxious. Or when our sensory cup is already full, and we can tend to seek more input when we're needing more sensory input. We'll then start seeking it. So yeah, it's very, very common to be both seeking and avoiding, and trying to tailor the right type of sensory input at the right time can be really challenging in that situation. We do also, after we've done a good sensory assessment, we then can help you devise a sensory plan, which is where you put in the right type of sensory input at the right times, depending on how your child is presenting at that time. And it's a very bespoke piece of work just for your child. So yeah, that might be something to think about. Next question. Any advice for a child who chews clothes and hair a lot, particularly towards bedtime after a busy day? Yeah, so now we know they're doing that to regulate. They are chewing to regulate, because that oral input can be quite soothing and it activates this big muscle here. Your proprioception is then activated in the muscle joints. So yeah, we do say try and replace it with something. So maybe like a rag or a cloth or something that's, if that gets a hole in it, it's not quite as bad as chewing through expensive pajamas. Chewing the hair can be tricky because it's hard to replace that, but maybe tying it back is a way, or maybe putting on one of those headbands that kind of pushes it all out the way. A headband might actually be a really good idea because it's giving that deep pressure as well to the head, which is also regulating. So I'd just say just work on the overall regulation at bedtime as well, trying to find lots of other sensory strategies that we've talked about to try and aid that regulation, so that they don't feel the need to activate these big jaw muscles quite as much. You can also get things like chewelry, I think it's called, things online that are like things that you can chew on. And again, you don't need to spend expensive amounts of money. Just make sure that it's from a reputable company, and see if that works as well. Let me just see. Oh, we've got a few thank yous. You're very welcome. Thank you very much. So I think that's all the questions. Unless anybody wants to pop any more in the chat, I will stay on for a little bit longer. But if you do have any questions, or you want to get in touch, if you just pop the next slide up for me. We have there, you can book a free call by scanning the QR code there, or just getting in touch with us. It's enquiries@otforme.co.uk if you are watching this on your phone and you therefore can't scan a QR code. You can also sign up to our newsletter. We have lots of strategies in there, lots of things that we talk about, lots of events that are coming up. So that's a really valuable resource. Scan the QR code. Again, if you can't scan that because you're on your phone currently, email in at enquiries@otforme.co.uk and we'll get you signed up to that newsletter as well. We really would love to chat to you on the phone and help you with your individual situations. So thank you so much. It's been, oh, there you go. If you go on the chat, Carl has helpfully put the link on there for our newsletter as well. Thank you, Carl. So if you're on your phone at the moment and you can't scan those QR codes, we now have a link to book a 30-minute call that's free, and a link to join our newsletter. So yeah, thank you very much from me. It's been a pleasure to be with you today, and we will be doing more webinars, so keep in touch with us. Thank you very much. I'll just stay online for another couple of minutes to see if we have any more questions. Yes, of course. I'll just pop our email address in the chat for you. No problem. I'll pop our phone number on as well if you wanted to have a chat with us. There you go. Okay, I think that seems to be all the questions for now. So we'll just let you take down those contact details and then we will leave today's webinar.